So it's 9:30 now. I'll introduce myself first. And I'm Gary Gall. I'm a professor and also an extension specialist for small fruits. And so that would be a lot of fruits and blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, and grapes. And all the other fruits, and from aronia to elderberries and figs and all those exciting wild gooseberries and currants too. So I have been with OSU for many years, and have been with OSU South Centers since 2011. But before that, I was an extension educator with OSU Extension in Delaware County, and before that, I was in Clermont County. And I was also a graduate student here too. So as you could imagine, I always tell people, it feels like I have been with OSU since maybe 1800s. So, well, maybe Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yep, I'm Ryan Slaughter, research assistant here with the Specialty Crops program. I've been working with Gary for almost 8 years. So August will be my anniversary for starting to work with Gary here at OSU South Centers, and I take care of our research plots and the extension plots for all the fruit crops that we grow. I went to school at Ohio State and got my degree in crop science, specifically in greenhouse production. So it's been a lot of fun working here and a lot of fun doing these workshops. So I hope everybody enjoys them today.
Brad, do you want to say a couple of words?
I'm Bradford Sherman. I'm the guy that got you here this morning. Usually the one that sends out the emails and communications as far as letting everybody know that we're having our events. And if you have any troubles, get a hold of me, and I'll try to get them resolved so we can get you here. Back when we used to have things in person, I ordered the cuisine and did all kinds of fun things like that. So hopefully those of you who have joined us at Piketon before will be able to come back soon. We can have some more in-person events. And for those of you maybe who are brand new, and I'm sure there's lots of you that have never joined us before, hopefully you can come down to Piketon sometime and see us. But in the meantime, we'll just try to have a good time here on Zoom, and looking forward to having you all with us this morning.
Well, Sarah, do you want to say a couple words? Or are you happy just doing behind the scenes stuff?
Hi, I'm Sarah Swanson. I'm helping Gary and all of them, and a lot of our other programs here, a lot of video work and that kind of stuff. So I'll be on the backside today.
Well, this is many thanks to our folks, and it takes a lot of work. It took a lot of work to get to where we are, and it looks very simple, but when it gets to the brass task, it takes a lot of work. Fortunately, people like us are getting very good at this, and after a year of COVID, and so even after the COVID is over, and we may still do a hybrid and do a few things like this, and we have acquired a few gadgets and also lots of skills, and so we're going to keep doing this. Well, today's format, and so we're going to have a few things. We're going to have several videos, and I will have a little bit PowerPoint, and we'll have a little show, and I'll have maybe some show and tell. Well, there's only so much stuff I can fit in my spare bedroom, so just a very small show and tell. And Brad, do you want to mention a little bit about door prize drawings throughout? Maybe give people a little heads up.
You read my mind. I was just pulling up my trusty random number generator that I use. So we're going to make sure that everything we give away is for people here on the live version this morning. So what I'm going to do is every half hour, I believe, we're going to do a little drawing. I'm going to do a random number between 1 and however many people we have on the live viewing. And whatever number that is, I'm going to count down, find your name, and we'll let you know. And then you can just direct message me with your contact information. We'll send you something good. Ryan, what do we have for him today?
Well, for those of you who are coming in from Southern Ohio, we've got a fruit farm here in Southern Ohio called Hirsch's Fruit Farm. And they've got an array of jams and jellies and some honeys and stuff. So some little goodies like that.
I'm not sure why, but when I'm looking at the screen for our Zoom conference, we have 4 boxes, and it kind of reminds me, reminds me of that infamous lawyer from Texas with a cat filter. Maybe that's one thing we could do to make it even more exciting, and that was so funny to us. Your Honor, I'm not a cat. I assume a lot of people saw that. Well, anyways, before we get started, and I think we're gonna maybe do our first kind of little Zoom poll, just to get things started. Don't know whether Sarah is ready. Okay, there we go. So you can click and click these polls and to so that will give us some idea about what you like and what you don't. This is fun. So we'll give it a few, about 30, 40, about 40 seconds. Okay, folks are still.
Come on, people. It's fun to prune. It's fun. 8 of you think it's fun.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Let's see. So still going. Okay, so that's about it. And do you want to go ahead and end the poll? There you go. So you can see. So pruning is it's definitely very, very important. And some of us think it's fun. And it depends on how much. How many plants that you have. I remember when I was a graduate student, I went to a commercial vineyard to prune grapevines for our research project. So these rows were so long that I couldn't even see the end of the rows, and then there were maybe several hundred rows. So during that particular trip, it was kind of depressing to see that many vines. But if I just have one or 2 or 10 bushes, it's a lot of fun. But the main goal is to improve fruit quality, reduce diseases, and then also you also improve the growth, and you actually reduce the fruit load. While you do that, and you tend to improve fruit quality quite a bit. And then the second question was kind of a little tricky one, and for those folks who have attended our workshops, I always tell people March is the best time to prune blueberry bushes, or do pruning in general. And May is a little bit late. You may just catch up a little bit, and then this is good to see one person doing this in July. And we had a commercial grower who did that. And it was not recommended by our textbook and textbook rules and this and that. This is Mr. Gary Vogley, and he pruned blueberry bushes in July. I asked him, why do you do this in July? He said, well, because I go to Arizona right after, I would say probably October-ish, and so he didn't have time to prune blueberry bushes. And even though that's not recommended, but his blueberry bushes look great, surprisingly. And October, and this is good to see that many. And if you have 10, 15 acres or 50 acres of blueberry bushes, I might, I would start in October. It's not ideal, but it's but that's if you wait till March, you won't get done. So the perfect timing would be March 1st. That's kind of what our recommendation is. Okay, so all right. So do we just kind of move this out of the way? And so we're going to start with maybe our first video. Ryan, do you want to just say a couple words, and then Sarah can get your blueberry pruning video started?
Yep. So just to give kind of people the feel that we are all meeting in person anyways. Usually we host this workshop in person, and rain or shine, or sometimes we've done it in the snow. We have people in the field out there with us, and we show them how to prune the bushes and prune the grapevines and things like that. And to try to give that feel, we recorded some videos and that were out in the field, just to kind of give you that feel that you're out there in the field with us. But Sarah did a really good job of putting the videos together, and that's what we're going to show first, and then we're going to do some questions after that. So,
hello, I'm Ryan Slaughter. I'm a research assistant here at OSU South Centers in Piketon, Ohio. I'm standing here today in our blueberry planting. These are Blue Ray. These plants here are about 15 years old, or maybe even older actually. So what we'll be doing is going through and pruning these today, just to show you what pruning would look like for an older planting of blueberries. So the first thing I like to do is look at this, and what we kind of are looking for is some canes that are up here about chest height or higher, just for picking purposes. So the first thing I always like to do is just go through and remove all this little spindly stuff, just to get rid of that. That opens up our base, that way we can look in there and decide what else to remove. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. It's kind of nice to work these bushes with another person. That way you can work both sides of it, but you just have to move around the plant a lot if you're by yourself. All right, now that I got all that little stuff cut out of there, we'll take a look at what's left. So with these blueberry bushes, what you're looking for is canes anywhere from 1 to 5 years old, to have a good mix of canes in there like that. As they start to get older, they lose a lot of efficiency in producing good quality fruit. Usually canes are over 1 inch in diameter at the base have really they put more energy into the cane than they do the fruit themselves. So that's the first thing we really look for. And I can see one already that's down here. Even though it's got some nice stuff up here, it's pretty big at the base. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of it. And I see some older cane back here I'm going to get rid of. The problem with leaving too many older canes is, like I said, the plant puts a lot of energy into those canes themselves. It doesn't send up new shoots, or as many new shoots. And you always want to try to renew shoots. So these are newer shoots. You can tell that by the red towards the base. They look pretty nice. So we'll leave those for sure. The other thing is we'd like to get the center cleaned up, just to let some sunlight down through the center. So I'm going to take out both of these older canes just to open up that middle a bit. And then anything that's kind of flopped out to the side. This variety here in particular, Blue Ray, the fruits are very large on it. And when you get all this fruit load up here towards the top, it tends to bend the canes down. So any of these that are already bent down, they're just going to bend down even further. So unless you're going to trellis them or tie them up, you know, some of these canes, once they get fruits on them, might bend all the way down to the ground, and that's not ideal. This is kind of a spindly little guy, and it doesn't really have anything nice on it, so I'm just going to get rid of it. That's pretty nice, even though it's got some little spindly stuff here towards the top. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this guy. This one's leaning way out here. Get some fruit on it, it's going to bend way down. But what it does have is a couple nice new shoots back here with some fruit buds on them. As I can see some swollen fruit buds there. So what I'm going to do is cut it back to those uprights. So those will get some fruit on it and it won't bend down so much. That's okay to do that. I'm going to go back to this guy again. It's got some old dead stuff on it, so I'm going to get rid of it. Little spindly twigs, they won't amount to much. They will get some fruit on it, but they won't be very nice, so anything a little spindly like that you get rid of. And we're left with some pretty nice looking fruit buds there. Not too much. If you leave too many, what you're doing is starving the plant from next season, so you really got to think about the future too. You might have a lot of fruit on it this year, but you don't necessarily have much next year. I see a lot of small spindly stuff back here. I'll clean that up. And I see a lot of dead here on this one. Pretty spindly little stuff. Just going to go ahead and get rid of all that. Alright, that looks pretty good. This guy's got a lot of kind of little spindly dead stuff. This one's leaning out pretty far, but it does have a nice little shoot there, so I'm going to cut it back to that shoot, and that's got some fruit buds on it. This one's getting pretty old looking over here. I'm just going to get rid of it. This has got a nice newer cane on it right there with some pretty good fruit buds on that. And we'll get rid of the little spindly ones. Cut off any dead material. And same thing here. Kind of an old looking cane there. Pretty spindly looking stuff on that we'll get rid of. This is probably the most time-consuming part of pruning your blueberries. Just taking a look at the little stuff and kind of cleaning it up. You can spend a lot of time on them, or you can just kind of work through and call it good. So I'm looking at that, and maybe I see a couple more over here that maybe this whole branch there looks pretty spindly, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Let it put its energy towards these ones up here. So, and then the other thing you want to keep in mind, maybe keep around 10 or 12 canes in the crown of the bush. So I've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So maybe I'll take out one more. Probably take out one of these older ones from the center. Just get rid of it altogether. Yeah, even though I just worked on that one, it's in the middle and it looks kind of old. Plus I see a nice newer shoot coming up. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that. That way it kind of gets our number of canes down to the ideal amount. And then looking at it, this guy's kind of hanging out there pretty far, and it's older, so I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of it too. That way maybe this plant can send up some new shoots this season. It probably looks quite a bit different than the plant over here, but like I said, the more you leave, the less fruit that you'll have next season. So this plant's probably just about done, and that's about what it should look like. So thank you.
Hey, well, this is great, Brian, and thanks a lot for recording that video. Well, before I get into my PowerPoint a little bit, I promised a little show and tell. So this is I don't know whether you could. Well, this is with a virtual background. It's kind of hard to see. So things like this, and we call this kind of a twiggy. I'll use myself as the background, and so this is kind of a twiggy growth, and you see a lot of little side shoots and very lots of tiny flower buds. So these are not very good. And so when I teach pruning, I always tell people to. This is what I learned from my buddy Dan Rouster. In Clermont County, and he said he would prune by color. So reddish and salmon colored the branches are good, and grayish and color is not good. And then these things are so small that they're not really going to amount to anything. So I showed you one good, and then I'll show you one. Showed you one bad and poor example. So this is a good, very nice. Very nice stem, while the virtual background is kind of a little bit awful. So what I wanted to show you is when you look at this branch, the top buds are big fat ones are flower buds, and so when you look at down below, there are lots of smaller tiny little buds, and so these are just all leaf buds. So anyways, so just keep in mind that the big long salmon colored or reddish colored canes are the best, and blueberries produce their best fruits under one. Well, the first year they just develop flower buds, and second year they will fruit, and so the second year shoots are will give you the best fruits, and then after that third and fourth, and so after about fourth or fifth year, sixth year, those canes are going to be much inferior in quality. So let's see. Okay, our screen is frozen. I see one question about our raised beds and being that high. First of all, the soils were well, the beds themselves were pretty high. They were about 8 to 10 inches above grade, and because of our poor soil drainage. So mulching, we typically recommend 4 inches of mulch. And then sometimes 7 inches would be okay too. And Bruce mentioned about rodent damage, and that's always an issue. Well, some growers would place rodent baits and to kill them. So yeah, that's it's an ongoing battle to keep those guys under control. Okay, I'm gonna share my screen, and let's see, share my screen. So just go through this kind of.
Gary, I'll address. Bill Johnson asked about pruning kiwi fruit. Bill, I put in the chat column the link to our Ohio Line fact sheet for kiwi fruit. And you can take a look at that. And it's got a column in there about pruning kiwis.
Okay. All right. All right. Thanks a lot. And this, I'm a good friend with Mark Longstrauth, and the Blueberry Extension educator, and well, unfortunately, he retired earlier this year, but he will still be around and doing things. But so this is kind of what you see when I showed you this the cane with lots of flower buds. So blueberries produce flowers on their terminal shoots. In our region, you may see maybe top 3 or 4 buds and being flower buds. And when you go to West Coast and like the state of Oregon, you see a whole bunch of flowers from top to bottom. But for us, and typically top 3, 4, 5 buds are flower buds. And so just keep that in mind. And the ones that open first will give you the best fruits as well. So, and because of what we call apical dominance. And so when you prune the blueberry bushes, and so always keep the vertical ones, unlike apple trees and pear trees and even peach trees, and we don't like vertical shoots. But in blueberry bushes, we always love vertical shoots. So this is kind of in spring, flowers will come out first, and then leaves will come out later. So this is what they look like, and then whenever you have a bloom, and you have more like an extended bloom, a couple weeks. Well, about probably 7 to 10 days or so, and depending on the variety. I'm kind of going through this quickly, and then the leaf buds will produce shoots, and then they will develop flower buds on the terminal growth. And so this is what they look like. And these when you look at this, you see these big fat terminal bud. And then the buds below them are more like vegetative buds. So, and then because they produce fruits from last year's shoots, and so you always wanted to keep plants nice and vigorous, and you always want them to produce lots of new shoots. So the canes, in terms of the most productive ones, are about 4 to 6 years old. Once they get beyond 6, and those are not going to be any good. So when you see a lot of these when you see these bushes, and I showed you a picture or showed you a stick of these twiggy things, and when you see a big mess of really little tiny shoots with a bunch of flowers, and you can always remove those. And we get very excited when we see a lot of reddish light brown kind of color, and so it's I get excited when I see lots of nice shoots, a nice fat flower buds on top. And so Ryan mentioned about pruning mature blueberry bushes, and if you were to prune the younger bushes, and actually that's pretty easy. You could just strip off all of the flower buds, and during the first 2 seasons, and you can use a pruner to prune them off, and you can also use wear gloves and just strip the flower buds off. And next thing you do is you remove the low growing kind of spindly branches to encourage upright growth. And so anything that grows kind of sideways and little small ones, you would remove those. Or sometimes, and if you get frustrated and you go like, oh well, these are not going to amount to anything, you could actually just remove all of those. But it's better to do the selective pruning, so you could have some nice leaf buds for them to produce leaves and the shoots. And then so this is kind of a younger blueberry bush and Elliott. It's one of the most productive varieties that that there is in Ohio. And so this is kind of before and after. And so what you do is you like Ryan mentioned, you remove kind of these little spindly growth, and you remove any branches that are kind of too arching. You keep the ones that are vertical, nice and young ones that are vertical. So this is a very nice shoot that comes from the bottom. So it's a younger one, and we will train this and eventually to grow bigger and bigger. You always want to have some nice and new young shoots coming from the bottom. And then this is well, this you always this you may or may not want to see, but when you have this much growth, then yeah, you would be pretty excited, and but you also want to should do a lot. So with this something like this, and I would start out with the oldest canes first, and go more like by diameter. Like Ryan mentioned, you want to open up the center. So I would remove several old ones in the middle. You remove the largest ones, the oldest ones first. And for example, when I look at this, and these could be potential candidates. So you always want to remove the ones in the middle to open up the center. And you remove some weak ones on the edge, and so this one looks very old, and so I would whack it off, and so mature bushes, and you always your goal is to promote new replacement canes, and you open up the canopy to produce more flowers. You also reduce the diseases, and you kind of want to have a balance, because if all the flowers flower buds turn into fruits, and then the blueberries will be very, very small. And then the next thing is you keep the base kind of narrow and kind of big on the top, and so you keep you also keep the fruiting wood off the ground, because if you have lower branches and a lot of well, even most of the varieties, well, we have Blue Ray, that's one of the worst, because it's more of an arching and you see the fruits kind of flopping. So you definitely wanted to keep the branches nice and upright. So this is another picture, and so nice, nice big flower buds, and sometimes you see this on the tip, and so I would attribute this to winter injuries, but sometimes diseases, and I believe it's a phomopsis, and that can do this. And it's a good idea to keep a mixture of canes of different ages, and so these see all these nice vertical ones, these are very nice, but these guys that are really old, they are the ones that should be the first ones to go. See that you have these 1 to 2 year olds and 3 year olds, and let's say if I have a picture. See, these are 6 to 8 years old. When you have something like this, these guys are not productive, so they would be the first ones to go. So the main thing is about for home gardeners, it doesn't really matter that much, but for commercial growers, it matters a lot, and because you are in the business of making money, and so what you do is you have a mix about 15 to 20% of 1 to 2 year olds, and then 60 to 70% of the intermediates. and that would be 3 to 5 years old. And then 6 years and older, maybe one cane or two, and that's really about it. Anyways, so you will make your money from the younger ones. So that when you haven't really done enough pruning, I tend to be on the light side myself. So how do I tell if I didn't prune enough? And what you see is just very little growth, and not very much growth at all. So one with our bushes, and Ryan mentioned that they might be 15, 16, 18 years old, and so 1 year. So what's that, Ryan? Do you remember which year that was that you did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? Do you want to say a couple words?
Yeah, I believe it was last spring. We took some of our older Blu-ray, a couple rows of the older Blu-ray varieties, and just did a renewal on them. And by that I mean took a chainsaw and just cut them flush down to the ground, not flush, but maybe about an inch above the soil line, and that sent up a whole flush of a really nice new growth, just to renew those plants. Because as you can see in the video, we had a lot of older growth there in that plant, and what we've seen is that it's not sending up a lot of nice new renewal shoots. So we just took a couple rows that we weren't using and just totally renewed those. And you can find that video on Facebook and YouTube if you search for it. Just renewal, blueberry renewal.
Okay. All right. So every I would say probably every 10, 15 years, and you might want to do a very hard pruning job and to get blueberry bushes to send out a bunch of new shoots. So you could commercial growers in the state up north, and they do what's called the mowing. So they actually come in to prune bushes really hard, and then almost like a tree stump removal kind of deal. And they come in so low, and then by removing lots of canes and cut it very close, and hopefully you won't kill the crown buds. So it's after you cut it off, you do see kind of a big stump. So it's exciting to see all those new shoots come up, and lots of new growth. And so you will sacrifice fruits for a couple years, but you will get lots of nice growth. And for commercial guys, and you could do this maybe every other row, or 1/4 of your planting, or 1/10, and do that every year with some rows, so you will have tremendous growth. Okay, it's about 10 after 10. We will have to move on a little bit. So Bruce had a question: can you identify different varieties? And yeah, you can, mostly by just by the ripening season, fruit size, fruit growth characteristics. But in terms of we could eyeball it. But in terms of 100% identification, that may or may not be. We may or may not be that good. And so I would say, maybe people like Mark Lonstroth, and he can do that. But I would say, we can eyeball it, and we get pretty close. So by bloom season, fruiting season, fruit size, and then the growth characteristics, so you can get a pretty good idea. And another question is any known issues for Rika and Chandler? Not necessarily. We don't really have a perfect blueberry varieties for Ohio, and they all have their issues. And so Rika and Chandler, I actually like Chandler a lot because it's a very large, has large berries. And so Rika, it's a very good variety too. So if I were to start out with a blueberry planting, and I would say Blue Ray, Blue Crop, and Legacy, Sweetheart, and Elliott, and even Chandler would throw in, and then if you can grow Duke, that would be fantastic. Not everybody can. Okay, Diane, had a question about what's the good balance between fruit and leaves. Actually, with blueberry bushes, most of the time, we don't really get that exact, and so if you really wanted to, you can actually calculate. You can count the number of flower buds, and each flower buds will produce so many fruits, and then you can go by the average weight of the fruits, and then estimate your projected yield. So most of the time, we don't really get that detailed. And so this is 10:13. So I may have to move on. Let's see. So Ryan, maybe you can.
Gary, we do have one question about container fruits, and we do have a video about that. I don't know if we'll have time to show it, but we can give a link.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go ahead and finish this, and maybe we'll do the container video next. So this is a good example of a pruning cut, and so when you have these canes that are arching, so you see this vertical shoot, and you see the cane just kind of keeps going. So this is where you whack them off. So this is a cut before and after. So you do have a lot of vertical shoots. Okay, so Sarah, this is the time for you to show the container blueberry bushes.
Okay, well, here down next to some of our container blueberries. We've had this container yard in for about 5 years now as part of a project through the U.S. Department of Agriculture and Ohio Department of Agriculture with a specialty crop block grant. So we got a grant to look at container production of blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries, and we kept these blueberries around. Once we get these blueberries established, because they're such a long crop to get to a fruiting age, we like to try to keep them in, just because if we decide to do something with them in the future, then we have them established and we can keep them. So we continue to glean information off of these and see which varieties do best in the containers. We've got a couple different systems you can see easily enough. In the background, you can see that we've got this floating row cover. So we have these same containers, same plants, and they are turned over on their side and laid down, and they're covered up with this row cover. The idea being that blueberries are very hardy plants and can sustain pretty low temperatures without any substantial damage to the plant itself. But the roots might not necessarily be as hardy. So what we're trying to do anyways is protect the roots from freezing. So what is in these is pine bark media, and even though it does have some insulative properties, it's not as good as our soil. And we have temperature data to show that the temperature fluctuations inside the containers without any protection is just about pretty close to the air temperature as it fluctuates, which is not good for the roots, versus soil temperature, which maintains itself pretty steadily as the season goes along. So with the containers over here, we cover them up to try to protect the roots inside the containers. Now this system here that you see, we've got a little row to look at. What we've done is build a raised bed out of soil, and we've covered it with this black landscape fabric. And then we have these pots recessed about 8 inches down into that bed. And that's just enough that we get all the properties of the insulative quality of our soil, but we still have the media in here that we're controlling, which gives us the pH that's perfect for these blueberry bushes. The reason why I wanted to look at these container blueberries is because they're about 5 years old, like I mentioned, and they've got a really nice height on them, and they've reached the point in their life where they've started to produce a lot of fruit. So I wanted to show you this one here and what we would do in respect for a plant that's kind of reached the age where it's producing a lot of fruit, but it's not a young new plant anymore, and it's not an older plant. Much older plant. So the first thing we're going to do is just come in here and clean up any of this really old stuff. So with blueberries, we're looking for a range of age of canes, but we don't want to get too old in the canes. And you can tell that when the canes really get some age on them, they start to get kind of flaky here along the base. They get bark that's chipping off of them. They get this gray color. And then really, when you start to get canes that are over 1 inch in diameter, they really start losing efficiency and producing good fruit. So the first thing we're going to do, I see that this guy down here is getting pretty old, plus it's in the center of the plant. I want to try to open that up, the center anyway, to get good light interception down through the whole plant. So we'll get rid of that guy first. Plus it has all these little twiggy stems on them, and that's really not good fruit producing stems. And part of that one, we had this really nice good strong cane coming up, so I think I'll leave that, but as I go to the top of it, I can see that it has had some winter damage. We've had some pretty low temperatures here this winter, so it looks like that has killed back that top of that cane there. So I'm just going to get rid of that dead and just continue first probably to go through and just look for the dead stuff and just get rid of that. Any little twiggy stuff like that, I'm going to get rid of it. Anything that's really low inside the container, like this guy is really little. This guy is pretty old. It's got a nice little cane there, but it's kind of low, so I think I'll just get rid of it altogether. And it's left that nice newer cane there. Got some pretty little stuff here I'm going to clean out. And when you are pruning, you try to prune as close to the base as possible. Try not to leave up these great big pieces. So we get that cleaned up a bit. We've got some little stuff sticking up in here. I'm going to get rid of it. Just for pruning or for picking reasons, you know, if we've got fruit down in here, it's kind of hard to get to, plus you might not be able to see it. You'll lose it. Get rid of that. We got a little tiny cane coming off the back side of here I'm going to get rid of. Okay, so we've got some nice looking stuff to work with here. Again, I'll get rid of some of this dead stuff to start out with. Looks like we've got some here. Pretty big dead piece there. And I'm going to get rid of some of this little stuff here in the center. Okay, here's some dead. So once I got all that cleaned up, what I'm going to do is just look at what's left here. So there's a big difference here, and you can really look at, and we'll put some pictures up, the difference between buds here. The fruiting buds are always going to be towards the end of these branches, and they're going to be much larger. So they're going to be swollen up quite a bit. And when you get real little tiny branches like this, they just don't support good fruit. You're wanting to look for a little bit larger, good healthy little branches that are sticking off here that's got a lot of the fruiting buds on it, those buds that are kind of swollen up. The smaller little buds that you see down here, those are all leaf buds. So I'm going to get rid of some of this little stuff, just so it puts energy towards sending up new shoots, and then put energy to the buds that are left. Get rid of that little one. Some little stuff over here, little spindly branches coming off of that. Clean that up a bit. So what we've got left here, some good healthy canes, good healthy branches up here, which looks like they've got some nice healthy fruiting buds on each one of them. So we'll have a nice little crop of blueberries on it this year. And that's about it for a plant this age and this size.
Okay, very good, Brian. You did a lot of neat work over there with Sarah. Sarah's the one behind the camera, so also did quite a bit editing, and so we did have a couple questions in the Q&A. So, is there a particular angle to you want to hear to when pruning? And so with blueberry bushes, it's not as critical. So I would say about maybe like a let me see if I can do this without cutting off my cord for my headphone. so typically you when you make a cut, and I would say 90-degree should be good, and just slightly above the bud. And so and then the good news with with blueberry, kind of like this, good good news with blueberries is that you can actually mess up quite a bit and still won't hurt, won't hurt that much, because you are constantly doing bunch of renewal, and so it really won't hurt that much. So let me see. Okay, next thing what we do is we have a couple poll questions just to keep everybody engaged, and Sarah, do you want to put them up? So you're welcome to chime in to see what I think. One question was, can we put up the list of different varieties? So these are the common ones, and so I would be so we should have had a longer list. The question was, can you put up a list? And so a couple of newer varieties that we like, and one is called Legacy. It's a hybrid of northern and southern highbush blueberries. We like it quite a bit, and it's more of a mid-season variety. And Sweetheart, and it's an early variety. And Nelson is the one that puts out lots of nice shoots, very vigorous, and so we liked it quite a bit. And Ryan, can you think of others that might be good as well?
Let's see. Did you mention Sweetheart?
Yes.
Sweetheart. Yeah, I had sent the list to that lady of the ones that we've trialed here, but Nelson, Legacy, like you mentioned, Sweetheart, and I kind of put in there the Pink Lemonade. If you want to try something different, it's a pink blueberry, and it grows really well for us. Probably one of the best plants as far as growth wise here in our area, and it's got these really nice little fruit on them too.
Okay, so the question is, what's the best variety to grow in containers? Initially, I thought it was going to be Draper, because it's kind of lower. It's more of a half-high type of variety, but we had all kinds of trouble growing it. And Ryan, do you want to tell them which ones turn out to be much better?
Yeah, we just had some. The Draper was our main trial with those container grown blueberries, but we did have some extra plants from what we put in the field that were Sweetheart and Nelson, among some other things. But those two varieties, Sweetheart and Nelson, have definitely shown the biggest promise for growing in containers. Sweetheart, and Nelson.
Okay. Let's see. Sarah, do you want to put up the next poll? Just kind of gauge and how good we have done so far. Yeah, this is very nice. We we were talking about this yesterday, and then Brad and kind of joked with me like, well, we don't leave people with any kind of negative an option for negative comments. Do you want to say a couple words about that, Brad?
It was just an observation that, we like to carefully craft our questions. There's always the other option on it.
Yeah, well, I always what do you call that? I always want to give myself a one big huge hug. Just fun to do. Okay, all right. Well, boy, time just flies by so quickly, and so we were hoping that we can go through the blueberry part very quickly. Okay, let's talk about blackberries. I think I'm gonna try to go through this kind of fast. Okay, so let me try this. Guess I'll have to share screen first. Share my screen first. Share. Here we go. Okay, let's. I'll talk about pruning blackberry bushes now, and then blackberries are not that cold hardy. So what I would do is, if you were to ask me what the best time to prune blackberry bushes is, and I would tell you it's probably more like late March and wait as late as possible. Because you wanted to definitely wanted to find out whether the blackberry canes have been damaged. Even then, it's hard to tell. So you could get a nice blackberry cane, and then you could scrape the bark and to see if there's any damage to the to the cambium tissue. Cambium tissue should be nice and white, kind of a whitish green. And so if it's brownish, and then that shows that the cambium tissue has been damaged, the canes may not be any good. So what you typically see is they will still grow, and they will still flower, and then the canes will collapse. So that's what that is. So commercially, this is what what most of our growers kind of practice, and it's kind of a hedgerow system, and a lot of quite a few folks would have trellis like this, and to keep canes from being blown blowing the wind, and then a lot of canes could be snapped off. So in terms of blackberry pruning, so what you prune them twice. One time would be kind of a tipping or heading them back. That would be during the summer months, and when canes reach about well, depending on the variety and depending on the training system. If you didn't have any kind of support, and you would prune them a little bit shorter, maybe 3.5 to 4 feet tall. If if you have a trellis like this and you prune them higher, and so we, when I say we, it's mostly Ryan. Our folks would go there and actually tie the canes, and we're using clips and to clip them to the catch wires. So this is what what they look like, and you would hedge them or tip them during the summer month, and then that will encourage a lot of lateral growth. And then around late March, you would cut all those laterals back to about the foot, and then depending on the type, and some are erect and some are semi-erect, and so you would cut them all to about the foot, and then if you have too many that are down below, if they are too low to the ground, then you can remove those completely. In the email that Brad got back from folks, and one person mentioned about trading blackberries. Trading blackberries, and they're almost like grapevines. So what you do is you actually wrap them around more like a loopy in loops, and so you would put it on the top wire first, and then you just kind of loop them around the trellis, and then you cut that thing off at the very end, and then you would trim back the laterals. Trading blackberries, you definitely cut them differently or prune them differently. But with erect or semi-erect, you would tip them first in summer, and then you cut back the laterals in March. So this is what a triple crown looks like, and without trellis. And so this is all these these laterals, you would cut them back to about 1 foot, and so based on the picture, they look like they're about maybe about 3 to 4 feet from the ground. So this is without support. If you have support, you can get them higher, so to make the harvesting a little bit easier. Blackberries are very, very susceptible to winter injuries, and so their flora canes can be killed. We got a pretty good taste of that during the years of polar vortexes. So this is what they look like. Canes have been damaged, and nice, really nice looking canes, but they were damaged by cold winter temperatures, and these are the prima canes. So fortunately, the plants are still the plants are not dead. Flora canes are dead. So this is what they look like when you train them on the trellis. Depending on the vigor, you could leave somewhere between 4 to 6 canes, and typically 4 will give you the best fruiting quality, and 5 will give you a little bit higher yield. So you kind of gauge and how many that you can keep, and for the best fruit quality. And this is 1 year that we had the perfect growing season, and we had whole bunch of blackberry fruits. Actually, we had so much, and we got tired of them. But that's not the case every year. We have gotten quite a few years of tremendous winter injuries. So if you were to grow blackberries in Ohio, I would say rotatable cross-arm trellis would be the way to go. And this is what they look like. I'm gonna pause and maybe give Ryan a chance to say a couple words about blackberry bushes.
Okay. Well, sorry, I was answering this question over here.
Oh, okay. Well, that's always good to give you a nice surprise.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess like Gary said, we we grew the thornless varieties. We had about 7 different varieties that we grew here at South Centers for quite a while, and we gleaned a really good amount of information off of those. Mostly that it didn't matter which varieties we grew. If we had a really crazy winter, they all died. So it's just really tough to grow thornless blackberries like that when we have some of these extreme winter temperatures like we saw, what, 14 and 15 with the polar vortexes, and then again just a few years ago. Really kind of wiped them all out. And it didn't appear that way in the beginning of the season. They looked like maybe they came out of it okay, but as the season progressed and they started to set fruit, then they started to slowly die back until the point where the whole plant just collapsed. And of course, it sent up new shoots. The roots were protected, but we lost all our fruit this year. But what Gary, it looks like he's going to start talking about is this RCA system, the rotatable cross-arm trellis. Although it can be pretty expensive to set up and put up, it's really the best way to protect blackberries during the winter time, because you can lay those canes down on the ground and cover them up. And just a real simple, lightweight covering seems to just be enough to protect those canes when we have really bad winter temperatures. And we've got some established here. We've got a demonstration area to show people how to train and manage that system. And we'll probably be doing some videos on that too. So stay tuned for those.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, Ryan. Let's see. I'm distracted very easily. So there are a couple of questions. So are Primark blackberries cut to the ground each year? And yes, you can. Yes, you can. You cut them to the ground level, and then you would just get a fall crop. So that would be good. But if you leave some of the canes, and they might still produce a late season, early summer crop. If the winter is relatively mild, and so you never know. And but the better way is what prime cane bearing varieties. You have Prime Gem, Prime Gen, and Primark 45, and Primark Freedom is one of the best. It's highly recommended for Southern Ohio. For Northern Ohio, you may still be able to ripen some, but majority of the fruits may not fully ripe unless you grow them in a high tunnel. And the next question is, are you weaving the canes? And well, we don't do that with our erect or semi-erect, but with the trailing blackberries that you do weave them kind of in a big circle, and then you let them grow like that. And next question is, when is the best time to transplant blackberries? And so depending on how big the canes are, looks like Ryan is typing something. So okay. So I'm going to move on to raspberries very, very quickly. And raspberries, if you have Primark cane bearing varieties like Heritage, Caroline, Joan J, and Josephine, and all those Primark cane bearing varieties. So commercial guys and growers, and they do it both ways, and to reduce labor costs, and you can't just remove everything, cut everything to the ground level, and some of these posts can be temporary, so you could remove them, and then you could just pretty much mow them over, and then you have just a fall crop. And so you can do that now. Raspberries are quite cold hardy, but they with a cold hardness, they break the dormants very early too, so they could be damaged by fluctuating spring temperatures. So let me get this. And so Caroline, mowing, and growers can alternate, and you can have one row cut completely to the ground. The next one, or if you want to do 2 crops, and home gardeners can do this. So instead of cutting everything to the ground, you could just space them out, and you could cut all the canes that are kind of growing beyond the center line. Keep all the canes kind of in a nice straight manner, and then between canes, you could leave about 4 to 6 inches. Some of the primocane bearing varieties, they produced the fruits last year, and then you could remove the top maybe about 6 to 8 inches, and you will have a whole bunch of flowers right below. So that's always so you can have 2 crops. So this is what they look like. And so black and purple raspberries, and you do the you tip them. So typically you would remove top 2 to 3 inches, and then you have a whole bunch of these laterals, and sometimes these laterals can be almost 4 or 5 feet long. So they can be very, very vigorous, but you still want to trim them back to about well, you could do probably 8 to 10 inches, depending on the vigor and the variety. A foot, and that would be okay. But if the fruit quality is not very good, you would trim them even shorter. And boy, time just goes by so fast. And I wanted to mention a couple of references, and one is the Midwest Blueberry Production Guide. The other one is the Midwest Home Fruit Production Guide. Both of them have been out for a while. So hopefully, I know the Midwest Home Fruit Production Guide, we sold, when I say we, it's Ohio State Extension, probably about 5,000 or 6,000 copies now. So it's very, 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 very rewarding to see that kind of record. Anyways, maybe we'll answer one last question before we move to grapevines.
Gary, I did not get to answer the question that Wendy asked about transplanting blackberries.
Okay. So transplanting blackberries. So you could dig them up now, and while they are still dormant, that's one way to. As long as you dig up big enough a root ball, it's fine, and you can transplant it. And another way to transplant it is while the blackberry bushes, they send out new shoots, these primocanes. You can always cut out one of those primocanes with roots during the growing season. They will still do okay. And or another way to do it is you could do what's called layering. So new shoots, and then you can pull them down, and then bury part of the cane, and then let the other side comes up. But eventually they will root. It's called layering, layering. Okay, so what else? 1-year-old bare rooted. So 1-year-old bare root raspberry transplants, should those be pruned? Actually, 1-year-old plants, and I won't even worry about them. You don't really need to prune them. No big deal. Just let them grow, and let them get some roots. I have primal blackberries and the raspberries, so I pruned to the ground last fall. I pruned to the ground late fall, not in March. Is that the problem? That should still be pretty good. Last fall, typically we kind of like to see the plants drop all of their leaves, and then plants also need to recycle the nutrients back to the roots. So better timing would be March. So hopefully, yeah, well, in the future, I would do that in March. But on the much larger scale, if you do it too early, and then you will sacrifice some winter hardiness. So that can be a problem. But for home gardeners, I don't know whether it's that big of a deal. So I would still do it in March. And then I didn't get a chance to mention summer bearing varieties. With summer bearing varieties, what you do is you let all the canes grow without tipping them, and just you let them grow as tall as they can, and then now is the time to just cut them back. Cut the canes back to about I would say 4 feet and 4.5, and growers will use a hedge trimmer to cut them, and so gardeners you can cut them with pruners, well, with gloves. Okay, all right. So I can go on forever, but we do need to move on to the let me stop share. We do need to move to our grapevines, and this is exciting to get this many questions. And so if you feel like you need to get a break, and you're welcome to do that whenever you feel like it. It's your home. So we are just gonna keep going until we fall off the chair. So Sarah, are you ready for the first poll question? We're ready to switch gears now and move on to the grapevines. Are you ready to do the first poll about grape pruning? Okay, this is okay. One is so still this is good, and this is I'm very excited to see that some folks do practice double pruning. So you prune some in February and March, and then you wait until the danger of the kind of spring. Well, wait and see, and then you prune them one more time later on to kind of delay the bud emergence and breaking a little bit, and so that this is nice to see. And so if you have 70 acres of grapevines, then you definitely prune them whenever you have time. That makes sense. And let's Sarah, let's close this poll. And then maybe do the next poll as well to see what kind of varieties that people grow. Yeah, this is nice. Well, the European varieties, and then these are like Riesling, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay, and those varieties. We do have growers who grow them, and try very hard to grow them as well. And boy, they're definitely very difficult to grow. So cold hardy varieties, there are a few, and at South Centers, and we planted quite a few of those. First of all, before I get too far, and I would like to thank Ohio Grape Industries Committee for their financial support of our grape research, viticulture research, or grape research and extension program out of South Centers, and with their funding, we were able to plant quite a few different varieties. And Ryan, do you want to mention the varieties that we have impacted?
Yep, we've got some of our oldest vine are all French American hybrids, and the 4 that we have, Chamberson, Noiret, Vidal. Sorry, let me back up. Chamberson and Noiret are both red varieties, and we have Vidal and Hibernal, which are both white varieties. Of those 4, I could definitely say that Hibernal is not an ideal grape variety for at least Southern Ohio. It does not do well. We have a pretty tight fungicide spray schedule, and no matter what, we always have a lot of disease that ends up in the Hibernal variety at the end of the year. But Vidal is an excellent variety. I think you probably see that all over Ohio as one of the staple white varieties for wine grapes. And Chamberson and Noiret both do really well for us as well. We have a couple vinifera varieties, Cabernet Franc and Regent. And Regent doesn't really do well for us in Southern Ohio, but I think the area does a little bit better in Northern Ohio. And Cab Franc has done well with some protection. We did a little study a few years ago whether it was viable to put these varieties in high tunnels, unheated high tunnels. And it really seems like with just that little bit of protection, and they were established a lot nicer, and they've done really well since then. And they've done okay without protection too, but those vinifera varieties are just really susceptible to our cold winters. And then we've got some Minnesota varieties. We have what I call the Frontenac family. We have Frontenac Gris, and Frontenac Blanc. And we've got also La Crescent, which I think La Crescent's from New York. Is that correct, Gary?
La Crescent, yeah, I think so. Yeah, my memory is getting fuzzy too. Yeah, I believe it's a Cornell release.
And Aramella, again, I think that's a Cornell release. And then Marquette. And that's, and we have Traminette. That would be the last of the wine grapes.
Let's see. So there was a kind of another question that could be pretty important. What do we need to wrap the trunk of newly planted apple trees to prevent damage by 17-year locust or 17-year cicada? And yeah, this could be a huge issue if it weren't that big. And because I did experience that when I was in Clermont County, I had seen hundreds and thousands of those 17-year cicadas. It was almost like an Albert Hitchcock movie kind of scene. So it was for gardeners and growers, and definitely do what you can to protect them. On a smaller scale, I guess you can use a kind of a screen, just as long as openings are more like 1/4 of an inch or smaller. So that would be helpful for the smaller plantings. So if you were talking about one young tree, yes, I would cover the whole thing, so cicadas won't get them, because insecticides really won't help that much unless you spray the bug, spray the insects themselves, by directly knocking them down. So, boy, they can cause tremendous damage. So I would say netting would be one way to help with the larger plantings. And it's a lot of work, but still could be very helpful. So Jane has a question about good table grape varieties, and I did research on table grapes when I was a graduate student many years ago, or many years ago. So Reliance is pretty good. Jupiter, Saturn, they are pretty good, and Marquis, and these are all pretty nice varieties. And then we still have a lot of folks who love good old Concord. Concord is still good, but it's quite susceptible to black rot, and so I would say Mars seedless would be a great variety, a nice variety to try. And Concord seedless, I'm drawing a blank with a new release. It looks like a Concord, but it's not. We'll just let that go. Okay, it's already 10:58. Maybe we will just go with the grape, our first video on grape pruning, featuring Ryan Slaughter.
Hello there. My name is Ryan Slaughter, and I'm a research assistant with the Small Fruits team here at South Centers in Piketon, Ohio. We're standing here today in our grape vineyard. It's an extension and research vineyard that's funded by Ohio Grape Industries Committee. What we're looking at here is our VSP system. It stands for vertical shoot position. So that just means that these canes of the grapevines are trained vertically versus where they just droop down on our other systems, which is high cordon. So we're going to be looking at pruning this system today. It is late February, and this is a pretty good time to be pruning grapevines, and you can prune all the way up into March, right before the plants start to wake up for the season. So what I like to do early on in this is, you can see we've got these canes that are growing up through the system, and all these will be brought back down to 2 bud spurs or renewal spurs, which is 1 bud. So the first thing that I like to do, and it's the quickest and easiest thing, is we've got some hedge trimmers here, and you can do this manually, but it's just a lot quicker when you've got a whole bunch of vines like what we've got here. So the first step I do is we've got these catch wires for the canes, so I usually come in right below that first set of catch wires and just take the canes off a little bit high. Then you can come back through and pull these out. Sometimes they get tendrils wrapped around the wires, and you might have to cut those out by hand. After those are cleaned out, then you can really start going back in and doing your hand pruning work. The idea being that you've got your main cordon running across your bottom catch wire, which is about hip height or 3 feet. And the idea is that you'd like to see a cane about a fist distance between each one. It's roughly 6 to 8 inches between each one. So as you go along, what you're looking for is good upright, pencil-sized diameter canes, and you want to leave 2 buds. So we're looking at this one, and I've got about 6 buds left here after I cut it. So we count from not necessarily the base, but your first one up, 1 and 2, and then we would cut just above that, about halfway between the buds. So you leave about a ½ an inch there on top of the bud that you want to leave. So we go along, and this one's probably a little bit too close to the one that we did leave. So I'm going to cut that back to 1 bud, and that would be our renewal spur for next year. So that'll send out a shoot. Maybe it won't have any fruit on it, but that can be the shoot that we leave for next season. So we look at one, it's a pretty good distance away from the first one that we left. So I'll cut that to 2 and just start moving down the cane. Now, not every vine is perfect. You're not going to have perfect spacing. As you can kind of see here with this one, there's a pretty significant distance between a good cane here and then the next one. But, you know, it is what it is, and you have to work with what you've got. So we'll cut this one back and just continue to work down the plant. Obviously, this is an old dead 2-bud spur that was left from last season. So we want to get rid of that. And then here was a nice new one that came from the basil bud closer to the cordon. So we'll get that rid of. And this one here, you can see that it was left from last year, and then it produced a new shoot. It's really good to try to maintain the closeness of the cane that you're leaving to the main cordon. You start to lose energy the further away from the main cordon that you get. So, and then the other thing is it's coming out of the side here, which is not ideal. You want to try to find the ones that are coming straight up. So we're just going to get rid of that one altogether. And then this will send out a shoot from the base. And again, the same thing here, unfortunately. And then we've got quite a cluster here of shoots coming out. So we're just going to clean that up a bit. Plus we're getting into the next cane. So you want to try to keep it from crisscrossing each other. So we're going to get rid of this. Okay, and that's left a couple nice ones there. And I think what we'll do is leave this one for fruit this year, and then maybe just trim that one back to 1 bud for renewal spur. And then the same thing with this one. We'll just leave 1 bud on that. So that's that side of the plant. We'll move over here to this side. Again, this looks kind of like a mess in here, so we're going to clean that up a bit. Any old dead wood, obviously that's going to be the first thing that we get rid of, so we'll clean all that out of there. This looks like it's been winter damaged. You can kind of tell as you start to clip back on it, if there's no green tissue on the inside, you know that that's dead. So we'll get that and clean it up, clean this up. This is a really nice shoot. It looks fairly healthy, good color, and it's perfect position. It's facing straight up, so that's the one we're going to go with. I'm going to get rid of this one because it's kind of got an older cane with a newer cane coming off of it, so we're just going to clip that all the way back. And then we'll leave this one here as a renewal. And as we move down, again, we've got kind of a blank space here, but this is a node here that will send up a shoot for next year. So this looks kind of gnarly and ugly. We're just going to get rid of that one and leave this. Yeah, we got a cluster again here, so we're just going to kind of clean up some of the ugly stuff. Get rid of that dead stuff there. As you can see here, so this was a 2-bud spur from 2 seasons ago, and then these came out last year. And these are pretty nice looking, but they're getting pretty far away from the main cordon. So I think I'm going to keep this one and get rid of that one altogether, and then prune this one back to 1 bud, and it'll be a renewal. And then again, we've got kind of a gap here again, but they should send some shoots out here from these nodes. Then we get to the end here, and you can see that this one's kind of going off and joined up with the other side, so I'm going to get rid of that altogether so it stays over here on its side, and then clean up the end. Again, this is getting pretty big and far away from the main cordon. Plus I got this nice shoot over here that I can use. So I'll do that 2 there, and I'll train this one back to 1, and that'll be a renewal for the end there for next season. So it's quite drastic, what you see from where we began to what you finish up with, but this is basically what it would look like after you're done. Like I said, not all of them are going to be perfect, but you kind of got to work with what you've got. And you can see here that this guy's kind of let loose. I always try to carry some little ties with me that you can tie these guys back to the wire so that they're not all falling down. But that's about the basics of pruning these grapevines on the VSP system. And we'll also be looking at high cordon system next, and that's what we'll be moving on to.
This is fantastic, and with the with the VSP system, vertical shoot positioning, and this particular training system is really designed for European type of varieties. And so we at Piketon we have Cabernet Franc. We also have Regent, and so both the varieties are trained to VSP, and we also had one of the Minnesota varieties trained to VSP. It turns out for Southern Ohio, that may not be such a great idea, but this is what research is. We wanted to not necessarily find out the hard way, but still, but in Minnesota, and they do grow these extreme cold hardy varieties on VSP, but for Southern Ohio, I think the vigor is just too much. But we'll see. It's fun to do research, and we just had 1 row trained to that particular system for Minnesota variety. My brain's drawing a blank. What variety was this again that we had on? Unmute.
That's La Crescent. That's all.
Okay, La Crescent. And while you were showing, we were showing the video, I saw that Bradford was busy doing the door prize drawings. Are you caught up, or do we want to do a live one?
We're caught up. I'm waiting on a couple people to respond to me with their shipping addresses. So I think Scott Lewis, if you're listening, I need your address, and I also need Mary B's. I don't know her last name, but just B. I need your addresses if you want to have a jar of goodies sent to you.
Okay, let's see. Maybe answer. Okay, so so renewal bud, recut leaf, 1 bud, and prune for. Okay, so this is a good question. On the VSP training system, and so our goal is to have 2 buds. Make sure. Oh, okay. So Ryan already answered. Oh, okay. If you have two nice healthy buds. So make sure you leave a little bit of a stub and a 1/4 inch or so, and make sure you if you cut it too close. VSP stands for vertical shoot positioning system. That's what Ryan just showed a couple of minutes ago, and the vertical shoot positioning system. So we may let me go ahead do a quick share. And even though Ryan mentioned about the pruning video, we're kind of pressing for time. So let me do a quick, quick share, and then do a quick presentation first. And before we get there, we may still show the, still show the video afterwards, and so we can have it recorded. Okay, here we go. For folks who grow growth varieties like Concord and Catawba, Delaware, Reliance, Reliance and Jupiter, Saturn, and all those varieties. What we do is because these varieties, if you just cut everything to 2 buds, you may or may not get the best best fruiting buds. Typically, when you look at these canes, the very first bud toward the base of the canes, for example, in this case, very basal bud, sometimes we call that a non-count bud, because that one is very likely not really fruitful and not going to amount to anything. It will probably produce a short shoot that doesn't do much. So our first count bud typically will start with a big fat one like this. We go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and most of the time, our second bud or third one will produce a long shoot with very healthy clusters. So that will give you the best fruit quality. So nowadays, there are 2 different ways to prune them. You can cut them to, cut everything to 2 buds, and then your renewal will be 1 bud. Or during the good old days, we cut everything to 5, and then our renewals will be 1 bud. So in terms of pruning, pruning table grapes, and what I would do is I would cut all the new canes back to 5 buds. And so I always joke with people, if you can count up to 5, you are in business. So cut everything, all the canes that are drooping down, cut them to 5 buds, and then the ones that grow kind of vertical on the cordon. I think one person had a question about cordon. What is that? Cordon is just a permanent arm of a grapevine. So this is called a cordon, and this is a trunk. And ideally, it would be good to have 2 trunks, just in case one of them gets killed, and you still have another one. That's the good news. The bad news is that when the winter is bad enough, and you might lose both of them. But it's still good to have 2 just for insurance policy. So I would first thing I would do is you can look at the last year's growth, and because you can tell these are the brownish reddish color, and nice and healthy. And so you cut everything back to 5 buds, and that's the first thing I would do. And then afterwards, and I would alternate like, okay, one of them is long and other one is short. Long one will be my fruiting cane, short one will be my renewal cane, and then just kind of long, short. So you do this, and with most folks, and this is plenty good. This is plenty good. But if you wanted to be the best, the best, and so what I would do is after you cut everything to 5 buds, and I would I would put all those one-year-old clippings together, and then put them in a bundle. I would weigh those clippings, and then there's a formula for each variety. So from my good old days of pruning Concord and Reliance, for Concord the formula is 30 plus 10. So if that bundle of the pruning weight weighs 1 pound, you would leave 30 buds. So how do you leave 30 buds? So you would only count those what's called the count buds. So because we prune these guys in 5 bud canes, so 30 30 will give us six 5-bud canes, and so 30 divided by 5, that would be 6. And so when you look at this, you go like, all right. And so if I were to only have, if that bundle of the prunings would only weigh 1 pound, I would say I will have 3 on each side. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 1 too many. So I could say, okay, well, which one is the worst? And well, you always want to keep the ones that are closer to the cordon, the permanent arm. So I would leave this guy, and I might trim this guy back to a bud. So I will have 1, 2, 3 on this side, and I will have 1, 2, 3, and these two are kind of pretty crowded. I might remove one, or you go like, well, I don't really like this one because it's kind of too far away. But in this case, the position is better, so I might just remove this. So if that bundle of pruning weighs 1 pound, and you would leave 30 buds. But if it's a pound, if it's 2 pounds, so for every additional pound, you would leave 10 buds. So that's called 30 plus 10. So if that bundle weighs 2 pounds, I would leave 1, 2, 3, 4. I would leave them all around. So once you do that, and this particular vine will look like a big jungle again. So you prune them back. And after you do your pruning, ta-da! It looks like this. It's pretty nice. And so with grape pruning, it's a kind of a constant, constant renewal, constant pruning and training. And after you properly prune a grapevine, boy, the vine looks kind of pretty skinny. And you probably think that for home gardeners, you probably think you may have just killed your vine, but you do prune them really hard. You remove, I would say 60, sometimes 80% of the growth. So they do look pretty, pretty neat. Well, do look kind of scary looking, but that's kind of what you need to do. Ryan mentioned pruning vines to vertical shoot positioning system. So this is what what they look like. And well, in diagram they always look so neat, so evenly spaced. And so well, that's kind of a goal that you wanted to shoot for. And so as you can tell, hopefully you can tell these from these canes, and these are 2-bud canes and 2-bud spurs. After you cut them back, you leave 2 buds. And then another thing I would remind folks is when you do the pruning, and try to keep a spacing of 4 to 6 inches, depending on the variety. If they are European varieties, European varieties in Ohio, this is what you do: 4 to 6 inches, typically about 6 inches. But for Minnesota varieties, and in Ohio, we don't really do VSP. But in Minnesota, they cut them back to about 4 inches between these 2-bud spurs. So let's see. Okay, I see a couple questions. So our Concord grapes typically grafted because Concord is it's an American type of variety. So it's not grafted. So to answer your question, what about the Niffen system? So that would go back a few years. It's called umbrella Niffen system, and typically that would be niffin system or umbrella niffin system is designed for it's designed for juice grapes like Concord, Catawba, Delaware type, and it's a very good system, and it's more designed more designed for mechanical harvesting. But if home gardeners want to do that, and they can, but the high cordon system that that I showed in the diagram is a little bit better suited, better than niffin system, umbrella niffin system. Umbrella niffin system harvesting it's quite hard because you have a huge canopy and all of the clusters are right above your head. And I remember my days of graduate school and fighting wasps, hornets, and all that, and having all the fruits kind of dropping onto my head. Those kind of bring back the not the good old days, the awful days. Okay, let's run the video.
Okay, well, the next one that we're looking at here in our vineyard is these grapevines on high cordon system. This variety here is Traminette, and it's about 5 or 6 years old. You can see some of the older canes here that are well developed. We've got our main cordons, our main trunks coming up here to our cordons across this top wire, which is about 6 feet. So this system's quite a bit different than the VSP system, whereas the VSP systems, we're training our shoots vertically straight up through the catch wires that we have. With this system, we come all the way up to this top wire, and then the canes kind of come off to the side and droop out this direction. So the biggest difference there with the varieties is that certain varieties just have a natural tendency to grow upright, versus some varieties have a tendency to grow kind of outright or down. So depending on the variety, depends on what system you put in. So with these, it's a little bit different. What we're looking for is to leave canes roughly about 12 inches apart from one another. And what we're looking for is good canes that are about pencil size in diameter, same as VSP, that are coming off the side of the main cordon up here. Now again, we're never working with perfect vines, with perfectly placed canes, so we kind of have to work with what we've got. So what we'll do is, what I like to do anyways when we first start out, is just to kind of cut stuff back to a manageable length, get some of this stuff out of my face. That way we're not working with poking in the eye or anything like that. So I get this stuff cut back, that way I can just really see what we've got. And it's really handy to have a partner to work both sides of the vine, just because it's kind of tough to reach across and do this. But when you're by yourself, this works too. After I get everything kind of clipped back to where I can tell what's going on, then we start looking at, like I said, a good 12 inches or so spacing. And I'm also looking for good healthy canes. And like I said with the VSP system, we're looking for canes that we're trying to maintain closeness to the main cordon. And the first thing that really pops out to me is this kind of system of canes right here. We've got a few years of canes that are present. So we've got these canes here, this one, and this one are all last year's shoots that came out. And beyond that, this was a shoot from the prior year, so 2 years ago. And then this cane down here is from 3 years ago. So if we were to choose this cane here, we would get 4 years away from the main cordon, and that is not ideal. So I'm just going to go ahead and remove this all the way back and just get rid of that and clean it up, because we've got this cane here that's a little bit closer to the main cordon. Ideally, I'd probably leave something closer. This is coming from the base, but this looks like it's been pretty severely damaged by winter. There's a little bit of green tissue there, but not much. I'm just going to get rid of it, cut it back to one bud, and it'll be a renewal for next year. So we've got this one, and what we like to do is leave 5 buds on each cane. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 there. So that one's already ready to go. So we move down the cane here, or the cordon, and we're looking for another one. Ideally, we would try to alternate. So we'd have a cane going off in this direction and one coming off in this direction, but this would be about 12 inches and we don't have anything here. What we do have is a couple canes to work with over here. But again, this one's looking pretty gnarly. It's got a few years canes on it, and I'm just going to clean it up and get rid of it. So it'll likely send off a new shoot for next season, and we can work with it next year. And I've got a little spindly cane here. I'm going to get rid of it. It's just unhealthy. It looks like it's been winter damaged. Same thing with this guy. It's not looking really good. We've got a couple nice looking healthier canes over here, but again, it's getting really far away from the main cordon, but unfortunately I don't have much to work with over here. So what I'm going to do is select this one for a renewal spur for next year, down to the one bud. And unfortunately we've got a lot of growth here, but this is a really nice looking cane and it's the only one I've got over here, so I'm going to leave it. I'm going to look at this cluster here. This one's growing straight up in the air. That's not ideal. I'm going to cut it back to one bud and get rid of that dead thing there. And this is getting pretty small. This is a really small diameter. And plus it looks like it's dead, so I'm actually just going to cut that one back too. This is a nice size cane and it looks healthy, but unfortunately it's coming off the bottom of the cordon, and that's not really ideal. And then the other thing is it's kind of growing backwards, back towards the trunk, and we're really looking for shoots that are coming off the in perpendicular direction. So what we do have here is a bud at the base of this cane that's pointed in this direction. So I'm going to take it all the way back to that, and it'll send out a shoot this year, and then we'll work off of that next year. And again, this guy is going straight up in the air, so I'm going to get rid of it. This guy is kind of too, but yeah, we don't have much to work with. There's nothing really down here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that 5th bud is pointed out this way. So I'm just going to leave that there, and once it sends out some shoots, the natural weight of those will kind of pull that down. It won't be growing so much upright. So that one's okay. And just clean up the rest of it, clean all this dead stuff off of here. Kind of clean the main cordon up. So what we have on this side of this plant here anyways is 1, and you probably can't see it too well, but there's 2 back here and 3. So 3 canes with 5 buds each. That's 15 buds on this side of the plant. And we'll try to leave roughly the same over here, maybe 4 canes. That'll give us 30 to 35 buds to work with. Looking at it, this is a perfect cane here. It's good size, it looks healthy. It's coming off the side, so I'm going to leave that one for sure. Count out the 5 buds. This one's getting into its 2nd year, plus it's pretty spindly and it's really close to this one. So I'm going to get rid of it. This is, boy, it's a big mass of old wood here, and I'm just going to probably just get rid of all of that just to clean it up, get it closer to the main cordon. And this is going straight up, plus it's pretty spindly. I'm going to take it back to 1 bud. That'll be a renewal for next year. going off the opposite side, this one looks okay. And it's about a pretty good distance away from the one I did leave here. So I'm going to leave this one and then prune this one back to one bud. It'll be a renewal for next year, and then we've got this one that'll be fruiting this year. Just clean all this up, get rid of the dead stuff. Oh, you probably can't see it, but we've got a pretty nice one that's on the back side of this. So I'm going to leave that one for our fruiting cane and then clean up the rest. Got a big old hunk here that I'm going to get rid of, some old stuff. So that's 1, 2, 3. And we've got a lot going on down here. I'm just going to go ahead and clean it up. Get rid of all that. This is pretty spindly. I'm going to take it down to one bud for renewal. We've got a lot of canes coming off the back side here. I'm going to just go ahead and clean that up. Clean this up. This one's pretty nice, and it's opposite this one. Even though we got a pretty nice cane back here, but that's going to give us 30 buds, 35 buds with the fourth one there. So I'm going to leave this one and go ahead and get rid of this one so that we don't over fruit this plant. So it looks a lot different. Looks pretty drastic, like we've, maybe killed this guy, but with these vines, they're pretty resilient, and the more you prune them, the better they do, and the better quality fruit you have on them. So, from where we started to finish, quite a big difference, but this is about what it should look like once you're done. And I'll probably go back through and just kind of clean up some of those little dead pieces that are sticking up off of it, just to clean it up a bit. And that one's about done.
All right, great job, Ryan, and looks like you had a compliment from one of the attendees. Great job explaining the whole process. And let's see, Sarah, do you want to pull up the last poll and just for fun, and then maybe we will do a. Do we still have any door prizes left, and then one more drawing?
Yeah, we're ready to do the drawing whenever you are ready.
Okay, I would say go ahead. Do the drawing, your random number generator thing.
Okay, well, I'll do it right after the poll here. I'll share my screen.
Okay.
Gary, do you want to answer this one last question here? Ideal number of fruit buds, 75 per cordon for table grapes.
Yeah. Well, in terms of ideal numbers for table grapes, typically, well, that's all. That's dependent on the variety and also dependent on vigor. And so that's what I was talking about. Your pruning weight. That bundle, does it weigh 1 pound or does it weigh 2 pounds? That would determine whether you have 30 buds or 40 buds. And for Reliance grapes, this is based on based on my research back in the early 90s. And so typically with the Reliance grapevines, we wanted to just keep everything around maybe 20 pounds, 25 pounds of grapes per vine. So if you have 40 pounds, that would be too many. So I would say about 30 buds to 40 buds would be quite typical. So if you have more vigorous varieties, you will have more. But typically 30 to 40 buds would be about ideal. And then you can shoot for that, and then you gauge how many, what the fruit quality is. Okay, this is good. And so do you, Brad? Do you need to share the screen? Okay, unmute yourself first so we can hear you.
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
Okay.
can.
And everybody, you can see my screen, guys? You can see my screen?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. All right. So as you can see, we have 67 attendees. So that is what I'm going to use. So I generate a random number between 1 and 67, which are live right now. We press generate number, and it is 53. And how lovely. I'm going to have to count down a long way. So 53, Sabine, that would be number 53.
Well, could plug in the chat.
Stop my share.
Okay, so let's see. Did we answer all of the questions?
Yep.
Okay, in the chat. And okay, all right. Well, we kind of went over a little bit, and just so much, so much information to cover, and I wanted to thank everybody who tuned in, and this is exciting to see these many people, these many folks tuning in to a Zoom kind of a workshop, and then I wanted to thank Ryan for recording, Ryan and Sarah for recording those videos. That kind of brings us to the kind of the live, give us a live feel. And many thanks to Brad for the behind scene and then also in person help, with registration, prize drawings, and all that good stuff. And it's hopefully things with vaccination, things will get better and better. And so, anyways, so many thanks for tuning in. And if you do not have any more questions, there's what is this is a Q&A. Okay, so happy that you're offering this presentation. Okay, all right. Well, we have a few more coming up, and each one of those will be on the individual crop. And I believe we have blueberries, blackberries, and the raspberries, and so we'll have a more detailed discussion on each one of those. And so we'll see how that goes. And it will be a Huey, Dewey, Louie show, and 4 of us, and so it should be fun. And thanks again for tuning in, and happy gardening, and also happy commercial production, berry production in Ohio. Thanks again. And so we'll see everybody around.